Hi, it's been a while since I've done one of these videos. So this is On Imagination with a Healing Garden. This is research. Haven't done one of these in a very long time. So the pillars of mental health are love, logic, and freedom. And in order to maintain a balance on all three of these pillars, you require the 12 ethics. The 12 ethics absolutely balance love, logic, and freedom solidly. To compromise logic is going to lead to something called a mental gridlock. This is where we see people with amnesia. This is where we see people who shut down, social anxiety, hermitage. This is where we start to see people become confused. They say things like, I don't know. And the system, the entire logical construct starts to catch into a catch-22 or a logic loop. And from there, I've seen it go as far as a early state of Alzheimer's, where the brain literally starts to deteriorate to the point of Alzheimer's. And then it's at a point where they won't even be able to speak or communicate. The amnesia is so severe that it progresses into absolute amnesia. And the common denominator in all of it is logic. And in the late stages, it turns into Alzheimer's. The next one is love. Love is absolutely in ratio with dichotomy to an absence of love, which is fear. And in that case, I see consumption, which is narcissism. Narcissism is the 4 stages of progression that goes from love and that stability of love into consumption, possession, where it absolutely consumes you, and the need to possess to fill that lack of love is overwhelming and all-consuming, which is where we see narcissism. I have seen cases where both logic and love are both compromised, where you end up with a mental gridlock and you also end up with a full consumption of fear. I've seen it where logic is very strong, but love is absent. And I've seen it where love is absolutely full, but logic is absent. The third one is fear. This is when you have power of choice, self-authority, and that leads into confidence and self-security. With freedom, to take that away, I've seen that immediately be compromised with love and logic. Taking away that pillar absolutely compromises the other two because they lack the power of choice. They lack proof of concept. They begin to self-doubt, which turns on themselves. To turn on the self absolutely turns and questions the logic. I can't do X, therefore I must be illogical. They're usually at a very early age, around 2 to 10 years old. They're put in a situation where they question their logic and they prioritize the authority, usually of a parent, over the self, which causes a civil divide. The parent puts them in a position due to the civil divide where it's, you have to do as I say or else. It's usually implied, but because the child is so highly logical, the children then concludes quite deductively that I have to choose between myself or I will have to die. So the child will divide the self, leading to illogic and logical fallacy, which leads to a lack of love. The power of choice and that self-authority is absolutely solidified in early childhood from the parents. This is basically going back to the psychology of hunter-gatherer, which is a 500,000-year-old psychology because all psychology is prerequisitional. It is required to revisit with each and every child in the early stages of childhood development. So what ends up happening is the parents are to reinforce the belonging and the unconditional love in both instances. If this is not done, love and logic are, as a result, the consequence. In order to maintain the balance between love, logic, and freedom, the 12 ethics are absolutely vital, being the first grouping of courage, self-authority, and then self-regulation, which leads to trust, which completes the first grouping. The second grouping is self-boundary, self-government, accountability, and then equal footing, which creates the second grouping, justice, which leads to the next grouping, which is reception or listening, transmission, talking, human connection. That creates compassionate foresight, true empathy for the third grouping. And the next one is 10th ethic, emotional fluidity, logic for the 11th ethic, and then forgiveness or no judgment for the 12th. That leads to the fourth grouping, self-love. When you have justice, trust, and compassionate foresight, it does create self-love, refortifying the first stage of love, refortifying the logic, and refortifying that freedom. Again, the 12 ethics, the entire purpose of those 12 ethics is to ensure the stability of all three life pillars. 100% of all mental illness can be contributed back to the lack of those 12 ethics and all three pillars. My hypothesis, it takes 1 year, I believe, of pure dedication to the 12 ethics and the restabilizing of love, logic, and freedom in order to solidify one's life. Thank you so much. May the kindness of words always find you.